Of the anatomically modern Homo sapiens fossil individuals dated by evolutionists between 40,000 years, 59 of them, 70%, fall into this 40,000 to 200,000 year gap. Anatomically modern Homo sapiens fossils that are dated more recently than 40,000 years of age are not of great importance for evolutionary purposes and are not under consideration here. There are 4 Neanderthal fossil individuals that are dated more recently than 40,000 years. They are the Amud I and Shukbah remains from Israel, and the Saint-Cesaire and the Arcy-sur-Cure remains from France. All other Neanderthal remains, some 300 fossil individuals, or approximately 98.6% of all the Neanderthals, fall into the period covered by this gap. It is well known that another reason why many of the Neanderthal fossils are poorly dated, and that is because they were found long before the importance of documenting fossils in their geological context was fully appreciated. That's saying it mildly. They screwed up with their record keeping. The relatively new fossil category created by evolutionists, the archaic Homo sapiens category, contains at least 64 fossil individuals. 28 of them, 44%, fall within this time gap. 19 of the 222 Homo erectus fossil individuals, 9% of the total, likewise fall into this time gap. In all, 406 human fossil individuals, not that many, which to base their theories on, which evolutionists feel are crucial in documenting the evolution of modern humans, fall into the gap between radiocarbon and potassium-argon dating, and hence have uncertain ages. It's amazing. They have a scant amount of evidence, only 406, but they want hundreds and hundreds of millions of years to be believed in their estimates of the rock strata and evolution. Yet they only take 406, and the record keeping wasn't so hot. So, creationists have noted an interesting pattern in evolutionist writings regarding the dating of fossils. Shortcomings of a dating method in current use are not generally acknowledged by evolutionists. Only when they feel they have devised a better method for a specific time period do they publicly admit the weaknesses of the method they have been using previously. The result is that the public assumes the dating methods used at any given time are adequate, whereas the dating specialists working with those methods know that this is not necessarily the case. The latest illustration of not admitting the uncertainties of older dating methods until newer ones have been developed centers around a new method proposed for dating human fossils in this 40 to 200,000 year time period. This new method, announced in the journal Science, involves racemization of amino acids in ostrich eggshells. The amino acid method was developed some time ago for dating bone material at archaeological sites. Because bone is porous, it is subject to groundwater leaching. Hence, the method fell into disfavor because it gave questionable dates. But they hang their hat on it for a while. However, and without thorough investigation and analysis, they realized, oh, this is no good. So, because ostrich eggshell is thought to be a rather closed system, it is claimed that items found in association with it can be dated more accurately by the amino acid racemization method. The admissions now being made about the dating methods that have been previously used by evolutionists to cover this time period are particularly interesting. These admissions have profound implications for human evolution. In the Science article on ostrich eggshell dating, the authors state that many of the dates assigned to human fossils in this 40 to 200,000 year period based on the older methods were only provisional, and that all such dating is uncertain. These are remarkable admissions. Apologize for this. I have to work with my legs up on the desk. I've just got a little dizzy. Anyone familiar? Oops. Hang on. Anyone familiar with the paleoanthropological literature knows that this is not the way most of the dates for fossil discoveries in that time period have been presented. This time period is critical for human evolution, and evolutionists have consistently claimed a degree of certainty in their dating which now appears to be unjustified. The author does not wish to imply that the ostrich eggshell dating method is a legitimate one. The point is that for evolutionists to claim that they now have a better method for dating human fossils discovered in the future date does not correct the inaccurate dates of human fossils that were discovered in the past. You can't update the stuff because of the bad record keeping. The dating flaws of the past cannot be rectified because, 1, many of the fossil sites have been destroyed or altered, so that reconstruction to allow for redating of fossils after the fact is not possible, and 2, to find ostrich eggshells that can be shown to have been in unquestioned association with those previously discovered fossils is virtually impossible. So, the uncertainty of fossil dates in the Middle Stone Age is just the tip of the iceberg. For evolutionists, the problem is far more serious, but few are willing to acknowledge it. William Howes, Harvard University, states that the dating problems involve the entire Middle Pleistocene, 100,000 to 700,000 year, according to evolutionists. This would involve many more fossils than just those in the Middle Stone Age. Howes writes, it cannot be too strongly emphasized how much uncertainty attaches to placement of all but a few of the fossils, absolutely or relatively, especially for the Middle Pleistocene. Creationists recognize that the problem is far greater than even Howes suggests, but it is refreshing to know that some evolutionists are speaking frankly about the dating problems involving the human fossils. Human evolution demands precise dating of the relevant fossils. Evolutionists now admit that the dates for the human fossils in the significant Middle Stone Age period and elsewhere are uncertain. It means that there is no such thing as a legitimate evolutionary fossil sequence leading to modern humans. It also means that evolutionists cannot make accurate statements regarding the origin of modern humans based on fossils discovered thus far. Their continuing to do so reveals that their statements are based on a belief system, not on the practice of rigorous science. Dr. Don Patton. So we look at Dr. Don Patton. Many scientists in his video, he says, tell us that the Earth is approximately 5 billion years old. However, that is not the case with all scientists. There are many competent, credentialed scientists that tell us that the Earth is just a few thousand years old. And of course, if that is true, then the ballgame is over when we are trying to evaluate creation and evolution. That's true. But obviously, a few thousand years would not be enough time for life to have evolved here on the Earth. If the whole ballgame is encapsulated in a couple of thousand years. Consider the statement by George Wald, Nobel laureate, regarding the import or the essentiality of time for the evolutionist. He says, regarding the evolution of life, the beginning of origin of life, he says, however improbable we regard this event or any of the steps which it involves, and he says it's impossible for it to start by itself, but then he believes it did. Wow. Given enough time, it will almost certainly happen at least once. Time is, in fact, the hero of the plot. Given so much time, the impossible becomes possible, and the probable virtually certain. One has only to wait. Time itself performs the miracles. George Wald, Harvard. Well, time becomes the Holy Spirit of the evolutionists that miraculously takes that which is impossible and makes it probable, certainly certain, virtually certain. I don't think time has that quality or that miraculous power, but that's the role that it plays in the thinking of the evolutionist. In fact, time causes things to deteriorate, if anything. You ever heard of Isaac Newton? Everything is devolving, not evolving. That's a law, and established by science since Isaac Newton. Everybody marvels at the works that he's done. Radioactivity age measurements. Introduction. Dr. Don Patton again. When I ask people how they believe the Earth is old, usually the response that I get involves radiometric dating. They claim that scientists have been able to date rocks at millions, billions of years, and radioactive material proves that the Earth's old. Well, let's examine that assumption that the Earth's old. Radioactive material is material that is not stable, that decays, that emits particles from a nucleus of the atom. By emitting these alpha and beta particles, it decays to become different elements. And we are supposed to be able to tell time with this process, something like you would tell time with an hourglass. Here in a picture, which is displayed in the video, wish I had the video today. We didn't have YouTube by then. We find uranium depicted decaying through uranium, and finally down to lead, which is stable as an hourglass, which have sand run down to the bottom. Now, if you're told that this is an hourglass, we can look at this and tell how much time has transpired. We would probably estimate 10 to 15 minutes had transpired here. If we know it took an hour for what's at the top to run to the bottom. But what could go wrong with this kind of a time-telling mechanism? If somebody lifted the top and dumped a lot of extra sand in just before we looked, then obviously our time-telling mechanism would not be accurate. If somebody raised the bottom or lowered it so that a good portion of the lead or the sand at the bottom ran out just before we looked, then obviously our conclusion would be wrong. Or if someone would be able to change the opening in the center so that it ran fast sometimes and slow the other times, then our conclusions would be wrong. And if just before we looked, the conditions that we observe now were the actual beginning of conditions, then we would find that no time would have transpired, even though it looks like maybe 10 or 15 minutes have transpired. All of these problems are involved in the radiometric dating systems, which involve the same kind of assumptions, especially with people that don't pay a lot of attention to keeping good records, which the evolutionists don't seem to be doing. Notice the acknowledgement of that by Henry Fahm, one of the leading experts in atomic dating, in his book, Ages of Rocks, Planets, and Stars. He says two important assumptions are implicit in this equation. First, that we are dealing with a closed system. In other words, nothing leaked in and nothing leaked out. Second, that no atoms of the daughter, that's what's produced at the bottom, in this case the lead, were present in the system when it formed. Well, what about original lead? These assumptions furnish the most serious limitations on the accumulation clock. Rigorously closed systems probably do not exist in nature. Now that's an amazing statement. Obviously, for this hourglass, or the system of radiometric dating, to tell time, you'd have to have a system that doesn't leak. Can't move that. Okay. I need to drop back and repeat this. Let's go back a little bit. This is amazing. For this, evolutionists mention this. Henry Fahm, Ages of Rocks, Planets, and Stars. Two important assumptions are implicit in this equation. First, that we are dealing with a closed system. In other words, nothing leaked in and nothing leaked out. Second, that no atoms of the daughter, that's what's produced at the bottom, in this case, the lead. U-235, lead. But could it be original lead? Yeah, it's all over the planet. Very often, like we have a nuclear reactor inside the Earth's crust, underneath it. And we have original lead, didn't come from the uranium, and with the uranium. And the uranium burns out and goes into lead. But there's original lead there beforehand. And they were present in the system when it formed, the original lead. These assumptions furnish the most serious limitations on the accumulated clock. Rigorously closed systems probably do not exist in nature. So you can't make assumptions, draw conclusions based on the fact that they do. Now, that's an amazing statement for him to make. Obviously, for this hourglass or this system of radiometric dating to tell time, you have to